Hello West Ham fans, this is Paul from Canada. What a great result that last one was, West Ham against Watford. After what was an embarrassing performance against Brighton, I was very worried about what we were going to do against Watford. West Ham don't like teams with pace, who press high, overwhelm our midfield and get to our back three. Look at Bournemouth, look at Brighton, look at Newcastle. None of them are really good teams, but they play like a sort of budget Guardiola team with pace and press, and they harass teams. And when they lose possession, they chase hard. And unlike Gonzo, and after Brighton and Watford's Monday result against Chelsea, I was quietly worried about another multi-goal defeat against a relegation rival with pace. Their high press, their new manager, they had a lot going for them. But true to his word, Moyes got the team to look forward rather than backwards at that Brighton result, and they refocused, they worked hard. So it was very, very pleasing finally to see that, especially the first half. That was good. I mean, since the January transfer window, Chicharito's turned up. That's 2 goals in 2 games now, or should I say 1 goal in both of the last 2 games. And unlike Gonzo again, I don't think we missed a trick with him. In the first half of the season, he didn't really get any service. His work rate seemed to go down. He was played sparingly, and I doubt, given his prior history with Moyes, that his move was elevated when he came along. He was used sparingly, like I said, and I think probably because he showed not that much endeavour on the pitch initially. His game's right in the box, and I think we were looking for someone who was going to work a little harder up front. So with one eye on the transfer window, I think he wanted out. And well, I think that's for sure. I mean, he said it. But given a sniff of what Lanzini and Arnie can bring to the team, and with the closing of the window, I think he's made every effort since the transfer window. And with Io gone, Carroll perpetually out, and thank God Sacco sold, the things have changed for him, and he seems to be spurred on, especially since his goals. The game against Watford was another of those games that when we have some of our gems on the pitch, Arnie, Antonio, and I would have to say Mario, we're starting to see a better intensity, quick inventive balls forward and pace. When we have those players on the pitch that can actually go forward, it gives the opposition something to worry about. Most of the time, we don't give oppositions anything to worry about, and they have all that time to press on us. And that's when we start to play that sort of dire, poor passing, harassed, just bop it out of our half game. So good to see, particularly Arnie back. Off the pitch, we're a mess. It's well documented, whether it's the division over our stadium, perceived lies, or oversold or overhyped ambitions, our farcical transfer dealings. Although I'd have to say, what's new? The fans are cheesed off, to put it mildly. The board-out chants and the signs and the 10th of March protests and Joint Chairman Sullivan's own video response all feed into the fact that there's a massive schism in our club. Off the pitch, we're a mess, as I said. This has been, exacerbated by, or as the season's progressed, particularly by the January transfer window. On the pitch, the opposite is true. We've improved since, the protracted and eventual sacking of Slaven by our perpetually vacillating board. They vacillate here and they vacillate there. They never really make their mind up. And it took them a long time to make that decision. So despite the mess at the club, off the pitch, on the pitch, for me, the jewel in our crown is Moyes. He was not a manager I wanted at the time of Bilic's sacking, and his hiring. I'm on record as saying the board got the decision 50% right, getting rid of Bilic. But I believe in giving everybody a chance, and at the time we were in upheaval off the pitch. He has galvanized our team. He's pulled us away from the brink and got the best out of what every West Ham fan considers a poor team, or did consider a poor team at the end of the Bilic era. Despite this, there are calls we should look for someone else in May, and I am dead against that. I ask you who? Who the hell right now, with our club in this mess, is going to want to come? Who's going to come that we can consider is going to be an upgrade on David Moyes? His knowledge of the Premier League, his reputation in the game, his contacts in the game, and the backroom team is assembled, second to none. He is the only shred of credibility our club has. The commentators, the media, other managers respect him. West Ham and respect are words that don't really go together well this season. West Ham and circus, yes. Respect, no. Moyes, for me, is far more dynamic than many give him credit for. He surprises me every time we play. Watching his pre-game press conference, he never gives anything away. He was asked twice about Arnautovic and how far he was in his recovery. And twice he deadpanned and said he'd done a bit of training this week and he's getting closer. The suggestion being that he was not ready, maybe make the bench, but certainly not ready to play yet. He was asked about Brighton. In his honesty, we did not play well against Brighton. We know that. The response the players have given me has been great. I've had to correct things to get things right, to get things back on track. I like the honesty of the guy. No BS, no blaming this, that, and the other. There was no blame for the ref. There was no blame for, any decisions. It was, we were not good enough. And that's what our players need to hear. In that Brighton game, Ginge came in for a lot of criticism for the first goal against Brighton. My assertion is that he wasn't actually at fault at all. And I'll tell you why, especially on that first goal. Rice was dropped against Watford and Collins was started. And a lot of people were like, well, hang on, what's going on there? Well, it was, I love Declan, but he was too deep. Several yards closer to Adrian's goal than Oggy and Ginge, and this played Murray onside, leading to the goal. You look at it, take a look again, as well as Cresswell's mistake, which started the whole thing. That's what wrong-footed Ginge and Oggy. They were where they wanted to be, and Declan was just a little too far back, and that just squeaked Murray onside, and it caught them with their shorts around their ankles, and so Declan was benched. And at the time, I looked at that and thought, yeah, Declan was out of place there. Don't know if he should be benched for that, but he was definitely out of place. And yet, Ginge was getting a lot of the negativity, but Moyes saw it and benched him. And I thought, well, I may not agree with the benching, but he's certainly seeing things. Moyes is a competitor, he uses every trick in the book to leverage the team's advantage. He plays players with a canny intuition and in a completely original way. And isn't that the mark of a manager who looks at things with, a fresh perspective? He's lumbered with baggage that I feel colours the attitudes of our supporters. Some of them, not all of them. But taken on what we've seen this season, given our unbalanced squad, the injuries, the circus off the pitch that's our club, he's amazed me. Who could have thought that Antonio, in a week where he chafed at not being played on the left, would start left wing back? He's never been played there before. And for me, despite it being the first start since a lengthy injury, remember that, lengthy injury, first start, in the 65 minutes of the game, he was a revelation in the first 65, I thought. We all thought Evra would be there, didn't we? That's what everyone was leading you to believe Moyes would do. And Antonio's cross led to the first goal and his endeavour led to the second. He ran out of steam, but as I said, it was his first start. Can't blame him. Give him 4 more full games, he'll be match fit, and then we can judge him. Cresswell left back. Who came up with that one? Again, it was Moyes. Coyote advanced on the right. Moyes. Who got the best out of Arnie? Moyes. Who re-energised Lanzini? Moyes. Who dropped Hart? Moyes. West Ham fans, I say, let's count our blessings in the managerial department that we've got right now. He, to me, is the, apart from a few of our players, he, to me, is the beacon out there. He's actually tied this squad together and is getting the best out of players that our previous manager couldn't do in a sour atmosphere that surrounds the club right now. I think we should do all we can do to keep Moyes and his backroom staff. We have seen times where he has played, or his team has played really well. Bournemouth was an example. Some of the Watford game was an example. There are sparks there, and I don't believe that he's going to continue to be defensively minded once that squad's balanced and once we're out of trouble. As far as I'm concerned, Moyes and his backroom staff are the only part of the hierarchy, of the club hierarchy, that are actually functioning properly. getting rid of them, it would be complete wheels off the bus as far as I'm concerned. I would like to see him stay next season for sure. And as for the board, and Mr. Sullivan in particular, I'm forever grateful for them bailing us out 8 years ago. I'm grateful for the enthusiasm they show. Being in Canada, I won't be on the march, but if I could, I would. And it wouldn't be to axe the board, because as owners, that's futile, and I don't think it'll happen. To attend the march means you're supporting change and pressing for improvement, and I think that's what they need to see. You know, Sullivan did his video, Mr. Sullivan did his video, and that's all talk. We haven't seen anything yet. That's why the march is important. That's why going and being on that march is important. You may not support everything the other fans say. I mean, I don't have a problem with the club crest. Thames Ironworks is fine to me. I'm not attached to the castle. It was actually never in our original heritage. You know, I don't have a problem with London at the bottom of it. For fans out of the country, some of them don't know where it is, and to get that stamped on their badge before other teams have may well be a coup. You can't say you don't want change, but you do want change. If you want change, you know, then change is going to take place, and change includes more money coming into the club and spending it more wisely on better players and elevating us. If you want the old West Ham, there are some examples of it out there. I mean, there's Charlton, there's Orient, there's Brentford, there's the Shrimpers. You can go see those clubs if you want the small club mentality. But the Premier League is not that anymore. It's a shiny business thing, and whether we like it or not, if you want to stay in it, you have to change. And so that's why, you know, I would go on the march, and sure, if we could get a new board, great, but I don't think that's what it'll lead to. I think it will force them to implement change if fans show they mean what they say. And whether we all agree on what that change is, don't know. It doesn't really matter. It matters that we show the board that we mean business, that fans mean business. I've got a few little cue cards here, and I'm just going to put them up. Pause the video if you can't read them in time, but I'm going to put them up while I blab on, because there are some things I think that need to be said, and I don't have enough time in this video to do it. So here we go. Up this comes, and I'm not going to read that. I'm going to talk about something else. You know, to Mr. Sullivan and the board, you know, I say it's time to get specific on what it is you mean when you say you're changing the structure of the club when it comes to transfers. What I hope you're saying is you're going to truly delegate all of the transfer window tasks, identifying squad needs, identifying potential player targets, negotiating for those players and signing them to contracts should all be delegated to a dedicated, independent director of football and a team who consults with the manager on specifics. Continue to be a fan, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Gold and board members, but get out of the day-to-day transactions with respect to the squad purchases and the financial negotiation of players. You've consistently underperformed in acquiring players while alienating you know, and narrowing the selection of clubs that will actually do business with us. This is not the fruit. This is not fruit barrows or used car sales. It's a whole other way of dealing, and it depends more on anything on reputation. And when it comes to the business of transfers, I'm afraid our reputation is not good. You know, I would like to finish on a positive, and today I've got two. One, well done for the board for keeping well out of the Twitter sphere with regard to transfer targets, private managerial preferences and tit-for-tat squabbles. I really appreciate that. That's the way it has to be. And second, we won against Watford for the first time in the London Stadium. I'm really impressed with that. There need to be changes in the way we pick up players because it isn't working. Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate all of the effort you put into running that club, but it's too much for one person. And that's obvious by the results of our latest transfer window when, you know, in desperation, we've brought in a 36-year-old Patrice Evra. I'm sure his leadership would be good for the club. I'm not sure he's what we want. What I would be aiming for is an average age of 26. That means every time you bring in an older player, you bring in a younger player. You keep that average there, not for the sake of keeping an average there, but for the sake of the future. If we want to be successful, we need to keep players And if we can't keep our players, at least we can get a good profit out of them if we pick carefully and they're young enough to sell on. When you buy 29 and 30-year-old players past their prime for big money on big wages, it's not hard. You can do the mathematics here. When you sell them, you are going to get less money for them, and they're not going to have performed as well as they would have in their prime. You need to start building a club with a lower average age, and you need a director of football in liaison with the manager to do that. By all means, have your goals for the club, and make the director of football aware of that. But after that, hands off, go on a holiday, leave your phone at home. Director of football and manager deal with player acquisitions. Anyway, with that said, come on you Irons.